All right, well, good evening. We're going to go ahead and try and get started as close to 7 as possible here. So if I have anybody in the hallways, if you can go ahead and come on in. Mrs. Mean, would you mind doing just a quick check in the hall? If you're in the hallway, if you can come on in, I don't want you to miss anything when it gets started. I don't usually use this microphone, but I've had all day of meetings, and I'm really starting to lose my voice tonight, so I grabbed this mic. It's a little closer than that one. So hopefully, rarely do people say they can't hear me. I'll be honest. That's rarely a complaint I hear. It's usually the other end of the spectrum. Can't you quiet down a little? Well, let me start out while a few people are still coming in, just in welcoming you. You're here at Latham Bible Baptist Church. Latham Christian Academy is a ministry of Latham Bible Baptist Church, and we are so excited that you have chosen this school for your children and put the confidence in our school for this fall. So we are really excited about the start of the school year now, just a very short time away. So as we get everybody in, we're going to get started with some introductions. We want to make sure you know the faces that will be caring for your children, but I think some of them are still in the hall. So we'll get started on that in just a minute as they come in. I do ask that tonight, just as you're here, I have to give a lot of information, and I want to do it as quickly as possible. So I just ask that you do your best to pay attention. If you've got kids near you, try to keep them quiet so all of us can hear, although I can always just move the microphone closer. We need to. But I want to make sure we all hear and can all understand. There's a lot of information. I don't want to dwell on anything. I'll try not to talk too fast. I am going to send an email out that summarizes the things we have tonight. I'll send it out tomorrow because I know not every family could be here. Some are on vacations and things this week still. So as we begin, let me introduce some of our teachers to you. I know I saw Mrs. Haddon. Is she in the room? Oh, what good timing. The lady in green with the white sweater, there's Mrs. Sandy Haddon. She is the K-3 aide. She'll be working with the 3-year-old. She'll also be working an extended session. So if your children stay after 12 o'clock, they may well be with Mrs. Haddon as well. Then the one who walked in with her, Mrs. Deb Rourke. Mrs. Rourke, if you would stand. She has too long of a list to say everything, but we'll say extended session, PE, lunch, and something else I'm going to come to in a few minutes. Just a bunch of stuff is Mrs. Rourke. So we appreciate her, but get to know Mrs. Rourke. And then I don't see our K-3 teacher. Did she come in? She's still in the hall? Okay, well, she comes in, I'll introduce her. We'll jump ahead then to K-4. My wife, Mrs. Fry, Dee Fry, this is her 10th year as a teacher. She's teaching half of the K-4 students. The other half will be taught by Mrs. Jennifer Greaves. Mrs. Greaves, let's see, I have down that we've just completed 15 years. So she's starting her 16th year of teaching. And all of them here at LCA, right? Mrs. Greaves, all of them here at LCA? Oh, one at another school. Okay. And then just coming in there, as promised, there's Mrs. Mansfield. Mrs. Mansfield, the K-3 teacher. And this is her 12th year teaching. That's all K-3, so there ought to be a medal for that, definitely. We appreciate Mrs. Mansfield and her work there. Then seated a couple rows ahead, Mrs. Betty Mean. I think you all know Mrs. Mean, but she just completed 35 years here at LCA. So that's where I say, if you have a question, she's the one to ask. I do it all the time. And then if for some reason she doesn't know the answer, the other one to ask is Mrs. Patty Kettlewood. I know she's around somewhere, probably answering somebody's question. Mrs. Kettlewood, this is her 30th year at LCA. So again, there's a lot of experience between Mrs. Kettlewood and Mrs. Mean, knowing what's going on. In fact, you notice 40 years ago our school started. So you can do some math on that of how many years we've had Mrs. Mean and Mrs. Kettlewood as part of the ministry here. But we're so glad to have them a part of it. So there's some faces you'll be seeing. Now, guys, I got to just turn on the spigot and start going. So let's go through some things to make the first day of school successful. So a lot of things to pay attention to. The first day of school, of course, is next Wednesday. We'll jump right into it. We ask, if at all possible, we want your children here the first day. I know that's not a problem for most of you. You're probably ready for it to start. But next Wednesday, school starts. We ask that you drop off your children, but don't hang out in the classroom. Even if they start crying, let me tell you a secret. Those of you, if you're having your first child in like 3 or 4 and you've never done this before, they will cry until you are about 10 feet away. And in almost every case, they start making friends. But as long as you're there, they want you back. All right, but I know it's hard. I've had 3 kids go through this. I know it's tough to leave them when they're crying. We will call you if they don't stop crying. Trust me. We will let you know. All right, Mrs. Mean? If they don't stop for some reason, we will let you know. But other than that, we encourage you, get them settled, introduce them to the teacher next Wednesday morning, and then leave. I don't want to sound mean, but it's best for everybody. If you just drop them off. After Wednesday, we don't allow anyone in our classroom after 8:20. So if you're still in the classroom at 8:20, you're going to see either me or Mrs. Mean come in and kind of gently say, let's go, it's time. They need to start. Our teachers have a routine. They teach real material, real activities, even to the 3-year-olds. And so we keep everybody moving and get you out. If you do come, for some reason, though, after 8:20, now not the first day of school, but starting on the second day of school, the door will lock at 8:20 automatically. You'll have to get buzzed in. There's a little buzzer there by the door. And then Mrs. Kettlewood or Mrs. Mean or I will pick up the phone. We'll ask who it is. And please tell us. Don't make us guess. We do have cameras, but usually we're just listening, not looking at the cameras. So just tell us who you are and who your child is, and we'll let you in at that point. Now, a couple of things we recommend, especially in the first couple days of school, that if possible, you don't get here before 8 o'clock. There's a little different of a routine. Our teachers come in at 7:30, and that's when our doors are unlocked. But from 7:30 to 8 o'clock, we meet together. And so the teachers are not available in the classrooms. We have a duty teacher in the gym. And you'll have to take them into the gym and leave them there if you come in before 8. You cannot go to the classroom before 8 o'clock. So if at all possible, especially the first week of school while your children are adjusting to the routine, to try to come in between 8 and 8:20. Now, one nice thing this year, those of you who've been here before, Shaker High School is not starting, and junior high school is not starting until one more week later. So there will not be much traffic, hopefully, here. But let me warn you, be prepared starting the second week of school, especially if you come towards the earlier part of that time. The traffic is really, really crazy because of Shaker Junior High and Shaker High School. And I think they actually start that Monday, right, Mrs. Mean? The Monday after we do. But hopefully the roads will be pretty clear for the first 3 days of school that we have. But if you can, now, if Lily, your work schedule doesn't allow, we open as early as 7:30. It's really not a problem. The teacher will meet you in the hall. Should have looked at who's on duty this next week, but a teacher will meet you in the hall and show you where to bring your child into the gym. Actually, the room where we have uniforms, our lunchroom, is where they'll go. Let's see. Oh, one note about the door, too, before I move on beyond that. The door, when it is locked, please, it is a security function. We're really trying to keep us and your children all secure while we're here. So if you don't know somebody, don't let them in. If somebody comes in after you, let us know in the office, an unfamiliar face. Don't try to prop the door open, any of those things. We want it to be secure, so for everyone's safety. So we do that after 8:20. It'll be locked until 11:45. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about this. I want to do this early. I have a slide here for you. This might be the most complicated part of the evening, so we'll do it first. This might be the most complicated thing. It is not perhaps what is the most obvious thing to do when you come in. When you come in on a school day, this is not to scale. I'll show you an actual picture in a minute, but this is easier because the screen faces a different way than our parking lot. But when you come in, we ask that you go all the way down the parking lot. So you'll come in, you'll make a hard left turn, come around the parking lot, and come this way. You can park in any of these spots. You could pull around and park in these spots over here. There's a lot more spots than it looks like on this little diagram. Okay, but there's a couple things we don't want you to do. Please do not pull straight ahead here. We have a lot of buses that come in for our older students that bring them in. I don't know, Mrs. Mean, what do you think, about 15 buses in the morning probably? You don't want to get caught in, around, behind them. I'm telling you for your own benefit. It might look faster, it won't be, okay? So when you come in, and don't come in the center aisle. Even if there's a spot right up here you want, the aisles are too narrow. When we're having a busy traffic, we have 120 or so students here coming in, and you try to cut in real quick and get a quick spot, you're probably going to cut somebody off and make them angry, and they're going to come and complain to me. That's probably what's going to happen. So don't be that person. because then I have to send you a letter and say, please don't do it again, and I don't want to write those letters. So just make us all happy, go around. And let me show you, if this doesn't make sense to you, I did this. I went to Google Maps here, or Google, whatever it's called, Images, and got a picture here. So you're going to come in the driveway, turn left, go up in here and park anywhere in these spots. These other spots up here will have cones in front of them. And please understand, we rope them off on purpose. Don't try to pull under the cone. I've had people do that. They'll pull all the way up to their windshield with the rope that we have there. It's for safety, because two reasons. One, when you try to back out, there'll be people behind you, and it just doesn't work. But secondly, our older students, we have a drop-off. We allow the parents just to drop them off and keep going, and they will pull around right up here and drop their children off and then keep going. And if you try to park there, you're just going to gum up the works. So I just ask that when you come in, come around here, park in any of all of these spots will be available, and some of these will be available as well. You'll see that ones that aren't roped off or there's not cars in will be available. So please, this is the most complicated thing all evening, but honestly, when we take our surveys at the end of the year about families, we often get the most complaints about our parking. If we can all work together, and one other note about this, I know some of you, I'm out in the parking lot, some of you have kind of a lead foot perhaps, or maybe that's the parents from last year. We have a very slow speed limit. You probably noticed it, 5 miles an hour. Let me explain, there's a couple of reasons for that speed limit. Number one, while I have this chart up, you know that right off to the side here is Shaker Junior High and then Shaker High School right beside that. There is a neighborhood over on this side. Lots of teenagers walk across our parking lot, across our property, and they love to walk across right about here. And so if you come flying in that driveway, you may not see a teenager, not even one of our own students, but going across to Shaker. And we've had some close calls. Don't do it. I know you'll be in a hurry for work, and I know 5 miles an hour is very slow. Please follow it. That's reason number one. Reason number two is our own students. When this is all full of cars, there'll be people that are trying to take their young children out. Okay, I've had 3 young children. Sometimes they get away from you, and they start to dart away, and somebody's going 15 in this parking lot. It's scary, right, Mrs. Rourke? We've talked about this. It's really scary. I need everybody in here, please stay at 5 miles an hour, even though it's slow. It's only going to get you to work 30 seconds later, but it might save a life. Okay, can we all agree as a group on this? That we need, even if it doesn't look like it, I need you to go slow. And even in this access road, again, there's houses on both sides. We get complaints at times from our neighbors. Why are these people flying through? I don't want to have to put speed bumps up. You don't like speed bumps either, do you? I don't like speed bumps, and I have to drive over them even more than you do. So let's just all behave, go 5 miles an hour, and we'll all be happy. And our neighbors will be happy. The Shaker students will be happy. It'll be great. Appreciate your help on that. Let's see, extended session. Let's talk about extended session for a second. Extended session is anytime after 11:45. We call extended session for our K3, K4, and K5 classes. But we continue all the way until 5:30. Students must be picked up by 5:30. Now, we always say, if something comes up, call the office. You have our office number, I hope. If you don't, that's not our office number up there. But call our office. Mrs. Kettlewood is normally until about 3:45, although often that's wishful thinking some days for poor Mrs. Kettlewood. Technically, she's in the office until 3:45, but if after that time something comes up, you're expected to be there, you're going to be there by 5, your child's expecting you by 5, and you get stuck at work or something, there is our extended session staff carry a cell phone, and that's its number. So if you don't get an answer in the school office later in the afternoon, that's the number to call. You can text as well if you want to text that number. Hopefully they'll all check the text, I guess, on there. But let them know I'm going to be a little late. And that might help everybody know, especially if you're expected early. Please contact us at that number. Now, do notice one thing. It is 5:30. Last year, we kind of were able to extend that, but I tried to get out in writing everywhere. It is 5:30. After 5:30, it is $1 per minute late charge. We don't want to charge that. You don't want to pay it. So please, and this goes along with something else. If you think you're going to be close because of your work schedule and your spouse's work schedule, you think, you know what, I'm going to be close some days to that, I would try to find somebody who can be an alternate pickup for you. Here's the thing. Please let us know who that person is, because extended session staff will check IDs. Until we get to know you, we're going to check IDs. Your mom. I'm her mom. She came up and called me mommy. We're still going to check your ID. All right, we're very concerned that the right child go with the right student. Our staff, on the computer that they use where they sign you out, when the child comes up, it shows all the people that are authorized to pick up that child. So if you're going to have a friend, a neighbor, anyone, please let us know ahead of time. Worst case, you can give us a call that day. Call the school office before 3 o'clock. Let Mrs. Kettlewood know, hey, today I won't be able to get there. My neighbor so-and-so is going to pick them up. She will add them to the list. They'll show their ID. We'll send them home. We're all fine. But what we'd really prefer, one of the things tonight, if you haven't already gotten, you will be given by your child's teacher, is what we call a verification form. I got mine here for my kids. There it is. Looks like a big grid, okay? This sheet like this. If some of those have been given out already, teachers, I don't know. Anyway, you should get a sheet like this. Unless you have a child that's older, then we'll give them out Thursday night. But if your oldest child is either 3 or 4 in our school, you'll get it tonight. And there's a chart like this. There is a spot at the bottom that says, what does it say? Oh, well, additional contacts. And there's only room for 2. A computer has much more room than that. So if you run out of room, write it on the back, write it somewhere else. Just give us the name, and if you can, the relationship. Like if it's a grandparent or if it's just a friend, write friend. That's really helpful for us to know what the connection is. And give us their phone number is another huge thing. In today's era where most of us walk around with a phone attached to us, on our wrists, on our ears, we have phones everywhere now. You'll be surprised how many times Mrs. Kettlewood only has one phone number for a child and nobody answers that number. The more numbers you can give us, right, Mrs. Kettlewood, the more numbers, the better. Even if it's somebody who doesn't live necessarily really close, but if your child's not feeling well, or if your child gets banged up in some way, we want to be able to call you and let you know, oh, this happened, what do you want us to do? And especially if you work at a job where you may not be able to be interrupted at work, give us somebody else who can be interrupted at work. No, give us somebody else that we can contact so we can get a hold of somebody if that happens. But that's all on this form. This form serves 2 purposes. 1, to give us that information, but 2, to check everything. We try hard to get spelling right. And again, how do I say this nicely? Some of us, and I'm including myself in this, don't have the neatest handwriting. I'll leave it at that. We try our hardest. There is times Mrs. Kettlewood and I both look at your application. We hold it up to the light. We're like, what letter is that? And we can't tell. So if something got put in the computer wrong on here, check it and give it back and we'll get it corrected. If everything is right, just sign it at the bottom so we know you saw it and give it back to us. A couple of things about this. There's a section at the top for privacy that says, you don't want your information shared. We don't share your information regardless. So that may not be checked, but by our school policy, we don't share your phone number, your email address, your name. We don't give anything out. We're just on the safe side. So don't worry about that section particularly. We don't share it regardless of what you check on that. And also at the bottom, we don't really need all your medical history. It just prints by default on this form. Listen, if your child has to go to the doctor, we're going to call you. We're not taking your child to the doctor. So we don't need all that information. You could leave that blank if you want on there. So if you have any questions about that, though, please see Mrs. Kettlewood or your child's teacher or me. We'll help you on that. But that's that verification form. Again, the very important students picked up by 5:30, $1 a minute per child after 5:30. We don't want to do that. So be here by 5:30. We actually have 4 different people doing extended session that late. They all have families. They all want to be home as well. So just be respectful of them and just have a backup plan in case you're running late. A couple of things. Oh, let's talk about this next. If I can hold this up here, with your August letter that we sent you with billing and other things, 3- and 4-year-old families should have gotten a sheet that looks like this, a statement of understanding. I think they were all green, right, Mrs. Kettlewood? This is a really important sheet. This is all stuff Mrs. Mean went through with you during your interview time, but we want you to initial and sign it again, so we don't want any miscommunication. There are 4 key things, and let me quickly go through these. I know you're intelligent people, you can read, I'm not doubting that, but let me just quickly through 4 parts of it that we're asking you to remember. First, your child must be completely potty trained. Now, we understand if they're recently potty trained, we're not saying there's never an accident, especially at the start of the school year. That happens sometimes. Okay, again, all of us are parents, we've all been there, we understand that. But if we start to see habitual accidents, that's a problem. And that child may not, we don't have the facilities for that, so your child might not be able to continue here if that happens. We don't want that to happen, but you must initial to understand. We also cannot help your child use the restroom. That includes removing clothing to do it. If your child is still working on that, I would recommend over the next week, put your child in his or her uniform and have them practice using the restroom with their uniform on. All right? And obviously, as appropriate for a boy or a girl, do what they need to do to use the restroom. But so the first time they're doing it isn't at school. Our teachers are not allowed to help them. And that should be a fairly obvious reason for that. I think we all understand. I don't think you would want us helping your child do that. So please don't ask us to. They need to be able to loosen their pants themselves. They need to be able to do all the things that are necessary. They certainly need to be able to wipe themselves. We can't help with that. All right, so understand all of those things they have to be able to do. And you're initialing saying you agree and understand that. Thirdly, your child must be able to eat completely unassisted. We will not help your child eat lunch. All right, if your child, we can't scoop food into their mouth. Okay, we will give them uninterrupted, quiet time to eat, but we're not going to force them to eat. Again, I've had 3 children. When children are hungry, they will eat, right? We all understand that. So we'll send the food back that they don't eat. We'll send it home so you'll know. But again, I know, and I've seen this sometimes they're awfully little children. And I've seen the times when they open the thermos and rice like explodes out of the thermos. The parents pack so much into it. And you look at the child, there is no way that much rice could fit in that child. Okay, so don't come to us and why didn't you make my child finish that? I couldn't finish that. And I like rice, and I couldn't finish that. So just help us with that, okay? That just don't come to us and say, all upset, Mrs. Fry, why didn't my child finish his meal? We gave them uninterrupted time to eat. If they're hungry, they'll eat. So we're not going to sit and spoon feed them. We can't. There's not enough on our staff to do that. This isn't a daycare, it's a school. So we want to keep that in mind. That's what we do. We'll give them that uninterrupted time and they'll eat. And so what they don't finish, we'll send home what they don't finish. And you can adjust as you might for that. And then fourthly, this is really important as well, that you agree to have your child here on 8:20 every day possible. Now, all of us, again, understand there are going to be times that come up, things happen. But your regular pattern has got to be here by 8:20. Again, your child is going to a school, not a daycare. The teachers have routines. They teach classes. They take lunch orders. And when your child comes in at 8:25 or 8:30, for one, Mrs. Mean or I has to bring them. I didn't demonstrate this. We have a stop sign. When this stop sign is up in the hallway, that means you have to wait by the stop sign. Generally, Mrs. Mean or I or somebody else will be there, but you wait by the stop sign in the hallway, we will bring your child down. But even when we do it, it still interrupts the classroom, and it affects not just your child's learning, but every child in the room. When your child has to come in, hang up his coat, do all of those things after 8:20. So I have to ask for it, but I also have to expect it. And we put on here that if your child is tardy more than 10 times in a 9-week marking period, 10 times, you have to meet with me or Mrs. Mean to consider whether this is the right school for you. I don't want to sound mean or harsh, but we have to have you here by 8:20. So that's expected. And you agreed to that when you met, but we need you to initial that so you understand. So and then you can read through this. We just ask, if you haven't already returned this, that you return it either to Mrs. Kettlewood or to your child's teacher by the first day of school. I have some, Mrs. Kettlewood has some more in the office, but at the end I grabbed a small stack of them. If you lost yours somewhere, hey, that happens, or you never got one, come and see me or Mrs. Kettlewood so you can get that filled out. All right. Let's do a few other things. We have something called school banking that we do. Now, because we are a school that goes all the way from 3-year-old through 12th grade, if you're not aware of that, we do. We had 9 graduates last year. We're expecting 4 graduates this year, so we have all the way through high school. We have a lot of programs that we are able to offer because of that, and one of them is school banking. Mrs. Rourke, as I mentioned earlier, the lady who wears many hats, has volunteered again to oversee that program this year. This is done through Capcom Credit Union and is a great tool to teach your children to save money. What will happen starting on the September 24th, I'd look at my date, starting on September 24th, every Tuesday morning, first thing in the morning, she'll get any kids out of the classroom who bring money to deposit in their bank account. Then she collects it. They get prizes every so often for actually learning to save money, put it in the bank. And this is a real, what is it called, a student account? I'm trying to think. It's a student savings account at Capcom. So this is actual money. We're just helping you out. The whole arrangement is between you and Capcom. But we're just helping, and we're trying to promote saving money, even from the time children are very young. Mrs. Rourke will be available with more information on that. We'll send information home, but that's done every Tuesday morning starting September 24th. We'll start that. Let's see. One thing to be really sure of, and I know it's hard to imagine right now, but help us out that your child gets a good night's rest every night. Most children about the age of 3 and 4 really need to be in bed by about 8 o'clock during the school year, maybe even a little earlier. If you keep your child up much later than that, they're going to have a hard time behaving in school. So I encourage you, and the teachers asked me to mention this, but try to have them in bed by about 8 o'clock. Every family is different, and we understand that, but that's a general recommendation. One more thing. You were sent some information, I'll bring this up in a second, about, there it goes, something called Sycamore. Now, for our 3 and 4-year-olds, this is my page, it's a couple years ago. My kids look a little older than that now. What was this? This was fall of 2017, so 2 years ago. I did that screenshot. But I understand that this is something that really helps our older students with older children because they can check their grades and homework assignments and all this is available. But there's still a lot there for you as well. We sent out an email over the summer about this. If for some reason you don't have that information, you can come and see me, or email me is really the best bet, and I can get you that information. But I encourage you to log in and just see what's available. You can check your lunch account balance, financial balances, things like that. You can check, most of our teachers, I think maybe you all put the snack calendar on there, so you can see if you don't remember if your snack day is coming up. Mrs. Mean's going to talk about that in a minute, but that's all on Sycamore. A lot of general school documents are available, but it's our system that we use to help us with managing our school. So I encourage you to get on. We do communicate heavily by email, so be sure we have a right email address for you. It saves a lot of questions. We send a lot of emails out, but I think it'll help you, whether it comes from me, Mrs. Kettlewood, or your child's teacher. Check those emails regularly and let us know if you have any trouble receiving them. The payments do have to be made. This is important as well for the financial side. Payments need to be made by the 10th of the month, or we have to charge a late fee, so don't do that. September 10th. Some of you paid your August payment when you registered your child, but that means your first other payment is coming up in September. If you have any questions, Mrs. Kettlewood can help you with that. Now, from time to time, that was loud. From time to time, your child may be put on prescription medication that has to be given at school. So let me go through, this is important on how to handle that. Your child gets something that has to be dealt with a prescription, a pill, some syrup, whatever that they have to take at school. There's a couple things about that. That needs to go to Mrs. Kettlewood, not even your child's teacher. Stop by the office, give it to Mrs. Kettlewood. The prescription must be in the child's name. Now that's for legal reasons, obviously. That shouldn't be a problem. But be sure it has your child's name on it. If you have to split it in another container, keep the other container at home and give us the original one, because that'll have dosing requirements on it. It'll tell us right off how much to give, when to give it, anything like that. So please get that to Mrs. Kettlewood the first day they have to give it. We can keep it in a refrigerator if we need to. We'll do whatever needs to be done. We don't have a school nurse, so Mrs. Kettlewood fills that role, which is her favorite job to do. But stop by and give her any of that medicine. Speaking of that thing, if your child is on a special diet, for example, if you prefer that your child is on a vegetarian diet or no beef, something along those lines, whether for medical or preference reasons, we ask that you let your child's teacher know. One way you can actually do that is to actually write a note on this form, and we will get it. If you do that, write it on the back, write it on the corner, on that grid form, but just let us know. It rarely will come up as an issue because we don't really serve a lot of meat except for on senior lunch days, and we'll tell you about that, but you would order that yourself. But we just want to know, we want to honor your decisions that you make for your child, so help communicate that with us and tell us what you prefer. And some families might no beef, but chicken is okay. That's fine, just let us know that. All right, I think, Mrs. Mean, I have gotten through the first segment here. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Mean to come up, and she's going to tell you a little bit about some fun things like snack time and dress code. Sounds like fun. I'm assuming you won't want to use
this. Here and some new ones I can't wait to get to know better. I just want to cover a few things that I've probably already covered with you when we met, but I just want to cover them again. First of all, snack time. Our little bitties during the summer kind of eat whenever they feel like it most of the time, but here at school they have to eat really early. They probably eat at about 7 o'clock in the morning, so by the time snack time comes around, they're hungry. And so we ask that their snack is nutritious. We tell you that once a month you will be put on a snack schedule, and on that day you bring in a snack for the whole class, and the rest of the time you don't have to worry about it. But we ask that it's nutritious, so we ask that you stay away from cupcakes, donuts, and things like that. We ask for nutritious, something that the children can actually eat by themselves. Animal crackers, Cheez-Its, sometimes even cereal, cheese sticks, things like that that they can actually eat by themselves without help from the teacher. The one exception for that is on their birthday. We let them bring cupcakes. We do ask that you bring small cupcakes and that you also bring another nutritious snack with it. So a lot of the children, when you give them a big cupcake, they eat the frosting, and then they're wired for the rest of the day. No, but so we ask that you bring a nutritious snack that they can eat by themselves. Please remember to bring spoons and forks, and anything else needs to go with that. If you're bringing yogurt, then please remember the spoons. You don't need to bring juice boxes. We actually recommend that you bring a water bottle, a non-disposable water bottle that we can fill up at the water fountain for the children. At any time when the child says, "I'm thirsty," we say, "Go get a drink from your water bottle." We don't want them having their mouths on the water fountain. We're trying to keep them as healthy as we possibly can. Plus, we also use that water bottle when they go outside. We put it all in a bin and we take them outside, so if they want to drink at any point when it's hot outside, they can take that drink. So we want to keep them hydrated as well. During their birthdays, like I said, you can bring a special treat for them, but they do need to stay in their school uniform. We know that sometimes the parents it's a special day, so they like them to dress up pretty, but if you send your daughter in a beautiful dress one day because it's birthday, I can guarantee you there's probably 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 little girls the next day that are going to ask their mom to wear a dress, and that makes it very, very difficult. So we ask that you keep them in their uniform, and even on a special day. Please don't bring any toys to school, and the reason for that is that the children lose them. There are other children that see those toys, and many times they end up in their book bag, and we don't want to put that temptation in front of the children. They see something that they want and it ends up in theirs, and they don't, especially our 3 and 4-year-olds, don't always understand that that's not theirs and they can't take it. So we do ask you not to send toys with your child, even if it's like, but they want it, and mom and daddy don't want to say no. But it really makes it difficult for the teacher at that point for them to not have another child take it. Dress code. We do ask that the children wear Velcro shoes, unless they're able to tie it themselves. And in most cases, our 3 and 4-year-olds don't know how to do that. And so a lot of times with the regular sneakers, we spend our day tying their shoes. And when they're on the playground and stuff, we don't want them to get them caught on the playground or trip or fall or other children stepping on their shoestrings. So we do ask that they wear Velcro shoes. Please label any clothing that your child may take off, especially their sweater. A lot of times during the year, I will have 5 or 6 sweaters behind my door because some child has lost it, and I hate to throw it and lost and found, because if somebody needs one, they just take it. And so we ask that there's usually a little place on the side that you can label it on the tag, or on the back of, on the back of their neck, that you just label it with just their initials. And that way we will be able to get it to the people that it belongs to. Our little boys do not need to wear belts with their pants. In fact, if you can find elastic waist pants, perfect. They do need to be, the Docker style. They can't have pockets on the side or anything like that. But if you can find ones that are elastic waist, that's perfect. No belts, because the little boys, by the time they get their belts unhooked, then we have a problem because they've waited too long. The girls, they have to wear black, blue, or white stockings or socks. I know we love the ones with hearts and flowers and all those things like that, but that's not school uniform. So they do have to wear black, blue, or white stockings or socks. We keep our classroom warm, so we ask you not to bundle them up so much. Like sometimes they'll have a long shirt on, and then or like thermal wear, and then they'll have another top over, and then they have another top over it, and they get too hot, and they're like, Mrs. Mead, I'm hot, or Mrs. Mansfield, and they'll start, we keep it at 68 to 70, so the classroom is plenty warm, and even if they just have their sweater, then it's perfect. Let's see. Okay, spare clothes. This is very important. We ask you to bring a complete set of spare clothes with your child that are in the K3 and the K4 especially. And the reason for that is that even though, like Mr. Fye said, we want them to be potty trained, we understand that accidents happen, and we want to be prepared for that. And so we ask you to bring a complete set of clothes for the girls, a dress, the shirt, panties, t-shirt, socks, and even a pair of shoes that they can still wear. Because a lot of times for our boys and our girls, a lot of times for the boys it happens right in front of the toilet because they've waited just a little bit too long and they just can't make it. And so a lot of times it goes into their shoes, so that's why we ask for a pair of shoes as well, just so that we can completely change them. Because legally we're not supposed to let them go without shoes, but my mama's heart doesn't want me to put a wet pair of shoes on. So please, just make sure we have something like that. And if they've had an accident and we send it home, please wash it that night and send it back again in their book bag, and we'll put it back in their cubby. So if they have an accident again, then we have it. Because the worst thing is when we don't have any clothes for them all and we have to call you and say, we don't have any clothes. And so that means you having to leave work and everything to do that. So put it in a gallon-sized bag with their name on it, and the teacher will put it in their cubby, and then we'll have it. And again, just the water bottle is important that we send, just to refill. If you like your water if your child's water to be warm, then we recommend like the plastic one that you have, sir. And then if you like it to be cold, then more of a metal thermos that they can keep it cold. Okay? Thank you so much.
One thing Mrs. Mean said reminded me when she was talking about their tights that have to be black, blue, or white, and notice that, but that reminded me of something that we should mention now, and that is when it comes to wintertime, we know that they might want to get their cute boots on. They can't wear boots in the classroom, though, and I want to make that, we'll send a note about that later, but there's a couple reasons for that. One, their feet will get way too hot. They're going to be inside all day during the winter. They can't wear them on our gym floor. They're very slippery on our gym floor. So if they really have to wear them, you're going to have to change them when they come in from outside. If they have to wear them when the parking lot's messy, then they're going to have to put their regular sneakers on when they get inside. And just understand from our perspective, where they're going to be in a classroom all day, winter boots just don't work inside. They'll get hot. They'll be miserable. But yeah, do pay attention to those that black, blue, or white tights. A little loud there. That is important. So I know a lot of them are cute, but they're not uniform. So let's see, a couple other things. We're almost done. Extended session. this is, if they're going to stay in the afternoon, there's lots of activities they'll do in the afternoon. And one of the things that's really helpful for us, and it's actually on the supply list, is if they're going to stay beyond 12 o'clock, that you send another coloring book in. Now, I think teachers, you take those and they're kind of communal. So they're not just for your child. But bring in a coloring book that we can share among the students who stay after 12. And that's a fun activity. We'll supply the crayons, those things. That's not a problem. But the more coloring books we have, the more activities we have for them can be really fun. It's amazing how well that entertains a child. They don't need an iPad. Give them a sheet of paper. Let them color. It's amazing. Now, let's talk about dressing for outside. As we get into the fall, we know in the winter we're going to be inside most of the time. But we will keep them outside as long as we can. We're going to go outside. There's lots of reasons why we play outside. One, it's good for kids. We don't want the germs all contained in a room, so we try to get them outside. But don't worry. When it's too cold, we're not taking them out. But what we ask is that, especially at the start of the year, don't put them in a lot of things where they're going to get really, really hot. We may be going outside while it's in the 80s. And we have children with long sleeve and sweatshirts and all of these things. Help us out. We don't want your child overheating. And that really is important, so help us with that. Now, one other note about extended session and playing on the playground and all that, that we don't sign your child out until you actually leave. There's times when your child will say, but I want to play with my friend. We are still responsible for them during that time, so you will continue getting charged until you actually leave the playground or the gym area. Even if you're in there, we're still in charge and we have to supervise. So we don't sign your child out until you take your child away. That's important because, again, understand there's lots of children in there. So we have to do that. Secondly, once you do take your child, this is especially true in the playground, but it's also true coming out of the building during the winter. There are cars that don't all obey the 5-mile-an-hour speed limit. Please keep your child with you. Please, please hold your child's hand. Don't let them run in front of a car, right behind a car. Just really watch them. That'd be a big help. Don't let them run recklessly. We've seen times when parents will start talking to someone and let their child just play in the parking lot. Especially in the winter, that's not a good idea. I don't know if it's ever a good idea, really. So please watch them. We do ask this. Those of you who are not staying for extended session, let's say you pick up your child here at the front door at 11:45, 11:50, something like that, and your child walks by the playground. Daddy, can I go play on the playground? The answer has to be no. Because we have bigger kids that are coming out right around that time. Remember, I told you we go all the way through 12th grade here, and all up through 6th grade will be coming out to that playground. And they can't play while your 3-year-old is on with, 12-year-olds. That doesn't work on the same playground. So I have to ask, if you're picking them at the normal time, even if your child says, can I play, we can't open the playground up here to you at that time. Because right at about 12 o'clock, our big kids, sometimes even a little earlier than that, I think, Mrs. Mean, they start coming out right around for their recess time. So please don't play on this playground even if your child begs you. Please, help us out with that. Let's see, one thing, nap time. I'm almost done. If you're here in extended session, you're going to take a nap. We usually go down for a nap around 1:30 and wake them up around 2:40. Each child will have a cot assigned to them, and they'll use that cot all year. We clean it regularly and all that, but they'll use that cot. You will be asked to send in a blanket, just a blanket. Please don't send sleeping bags. Don't send extra large blankets. There's lots of reasons for that, but number one is we don't have a place to store it, and number two, your child doesn't need it. Like Mrs. Mean said, we keep the classroom warm enough. They don't need to bundle up. So we just ask that they bring a blanket, not even a pillow, right, Mrs. Mean? We should have had you bring a demonstration in. But just, what do you call those blankets that go over the cot? Just a little bigger than a receiving blanket, right? But just something they can go over them. What's that? Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Above them, yeah. We have to be, I'm sorry. I'm saying we have to be able to stack them up after nap time, so we don't want them touching, they can't ball up and go to the point that they stack up that high. So please send that in, and then we'll send it home every Friday to be washed, or sooner if needed, obviously, if something happens. But please send it back on Monday. When we send it home Friday, send it back on Monday so your child can cover themselves up on that. That'll be your child's responsibility to go and put it on their cot and then go and help put it away too. Do not send in pillows though. If your child has some unusual need for a pillow, some kind of something where they might need that, talk to your child's teacher. Hot lunches. We do have, Mrs. Mean probably told you about some of our lunch programs when she met with you. We will send more information home next week. No lunches, we're not serving any lunches next week. It won't start till the week after, and we will send you more information on that. But I encourage you, if it's something you think your child is going to do, this is on Thursdays. It's done on Thursdays. It's usually, 10:30, 10:45, something like that for this group, that we serve them on Thursdays. That's something that you may want to set up a lunch account with Mrs. Kettlewood. Money is just deducted as it's used. The other days, lunch is served just for the extended session time, served at 12 o'clock. And there are other options too. But we'll send all of that home next week with prices and all that stuff on it. All right. Let me go through a couple things here. In just a minute, we're going to dismiss you to go out to the hall. Let me go through what's going to happen out here. Each of our teachers has some kind of bin or container or something. If you brought any school supplies, if you brought that little bag with a change of clothes because you're ultra prepared and you want to be on top of things, you can give that to the teacher tonight. Don't have to worry about it on Wednesday. We'll make sure it gets in their cubby, all of that. The classrooms, however, are not open yet. The teachers are still working in their classrooms. This was the first day of their contracts. So teachers have a lot of them have been in here for a long time working, but the classrooms are not ready yet to go down and see them. So we're going to keep you up at this end of the building. Teachers also have an information packet. If you have a K4 and you don't know which classroom you're in, you can see either Mrs. Greaves or Mrs. Fry. I know Mrs. Greaves put her list out here on the table. I don't think Mrs. Fry, yours isn't out here, or is it? It's down here. So they can tell you if you don't know which section you're in there. We also have some used uniforms available. If you haven't already been down there, they're in our lunchroom. What you're going to do is if you go down this hall, like where is Mrs. Greaves, is that you right down here, standing out here? Yeah. So just go down this hall and go into our gym and go straight to the end of the gym and turn right. You'll see it's the only room in the gym. You won't get lost. There's only one room in the gym. Go in that room. All that stuff is there for you to take. The more you take, the less we have to pack back up and put in storage next year. So we want you to take it. If you're the first one in the room, maybe be judicious and not take the whole stack. If there's a whole stack for your size, be considerate of others. These are uniforms that people at the end of last year or the year before returned to us. So they've been gently used. All we ask is, what do they say? Pass it along. If you have good uniforms at the end of this year that don't fit your child anymore, send them in and we'll do the same thing next year. And we'll keep the process going. There's a fair number of clothes down there. There's not a massive amount, but you may check that. That's a great thing for spare clothes. Even if you want your child, only in new clothes, that's a great opportunity for the stuff you put in the bag. Pick up a pair of pants and a uniform shirt, because your spare clothes do have to be uniform. I mean, by the way, Mrs. Mean didn't mention this, but sometimes people send in play clothes. But think about this from your child's perspective. Your child has an accident and then is dressed different than everybody else in the room. That's very embarrassing, and we don't want to do that to your child. So I know it might be a little more expensive, but we want the spare clothes to be uniform so they're not standing out from everybody else when they had an accident. I mean, would you want to be in that boat yourself as an adult? Obviously not. So just think about your child from that, and that's why we ask that. This, by the way, is just a chance for a quick visit with your child's teacher. If for some reason there's something you need to discuss with your teacher that takes more than a minute to do, talk to them and set up an appointment. They'll be happy to meet with you. They'll meet with you in person. They'll meet with you by phone. I don't know. Maybe you'll even Skype them. I don't know. But does anybody Skype anymore? Anyway, we will set up whatever we need to, but that's not for tonight. Our teachers have been here since like 8 o'clock this morning. Some of them haven't left yet, right, Mrs. Mean? So we don't want to we don't want to keep them here real late. See them in the hall. If you need to set up an appointment, you can do that if you have some issue you want to let them know about or discuss something with them. But pick up the packets, leave anything behind, greet them, all of those things. That's fine. And then in about 20 minutes, I'm trying to get everybody out of here. Sound like a plan? All right, hang on one second. Teachers, let me let the teachers go first. So my teachers and staff members can go out to the hall. Mrs. Kettlewood, are you going to the office too? So if you need the office for any reason, go down the hall to the office. Mrs. Kettlewood will greet you there. Like I said, I have some more of these statement of understanding forms if you need those. But let's close with a word of prayer and ask God's blessing on our school year together. I'd like to ask if you'd pray with me. Our Lord, thank you so much for each of these students and families that are represented here. And we ask, Lord, that you would be glorified in this school year. Lord, protect our students. Keep us each safe. Help us to please you, all that we say and do this year. And I pray it would be a great learning time, always, Lord, for you. Give us a safe trip home and a great start to our school year next Wednesday. We love you, Lord. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, you are dismissed. Thank you very much for coming tonight.